Hi everybody, this is Hero. Welcome to another Dragonflight video. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Assassination Rogue's spec tree and talent tree. We've just got the Rogue stuff released along with Hunter, and I want to give you my main takeaways. The reason I wanted to make this video in part is because I think it represents a drastic difference in design compared to a number of the other trees, specifically what we've seen in DK, Druid, and Priest. For me, even though I'm not a huge fan still of the type of tree style with these interconnected and interlocking trunks that go all the way down and force you down a certain path, I would rather see these almost disappear and some of the limitations be removed in that regard. Nevertheless, if you're going to have this system, I think whoever designed Assassination Rogue specifically did an excellent job. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First reason, the extra bonuses off to the side of the main trunks are accessible. They are niche but powerful, and they represent some of the better abilities that Rogue has had access to, in the last number of tiers. Crimson Tempest, Exsanguinate, these are again niche pieces. You don't have to take them, but they're not far from the trunk. Doomblade and Sepsis, these are both gigantic powerful effects in their own right. So one's a Covenant ability that was pretty strong. Another one's a legendary effect that is returning. Again, just a couple of points off of this trunk. Similarly, Blindside, which is a tier 1 talent currently, but has some synergy potentially with improved ambush on the other side. These things are not that far away, and if you don't think you need the extra single target focus that this talent Maim and Mangle offers, then you're also likely not going to need the Blindside talent. And I'll explain what I mean by that when I do a comparison of some single target approaches and Mythic Plus approaches just on the PvE side. But I think the design, guys, overall of Assassination is really excellent. We'll talk about things like Death Mark and why I think it's a better way forward. We'll talk about things like Atrophic Poison, which is our new kind of raid utility, and why I think it's also positioned quite well. There is tension. That is the main piece that I like about this. There is tension in the talent choices, and the tension is not, generally speaking, based on the acquisition of a bunch of weak, niche talents to gain access to your best talent. Instead, it's generally speaking a lot of good options that I'm looking forward to or want to grab, and I just get to the end of my talent points and am required to make some serious choices as a result. So that design, guys, even though I think the system is a little annoying still with these extra lines, forming all these trunks, I think it's still the best version we've seen, and I really hope that most of the specs get some kind of treatment like this. Okay. So let's work through the overall trees. And I want to be quick here because I do want to just present a couple of builds, but just want to make a few notes about major changes and the overall feeling of each of them so that there's some context for those choices. On the Rogue tree itself, the main things to note here are access to Shadow Dance for all specs, access to Thistle Tea, which is an older Rogue idea. Used to be something you would make and then you would restore energy. Access to Cold Blood again, which is an iconic Rogue ability from Classic, and pretty cool ability in my view. The use of Echoing Reprimand, so our Covenant ability. The use of Sepsis across, I think this is across all Rogue specs as well. So another Covenant ability that's accessed. We don't have Bone Spikes, which is probably the Necrolord one is probably the one that most people we're looking forward to seeing and haven't seen it yet. I don't really have a full opinion about it, but just in general, these are some of the access to things we have. What else on the main Rogue tree that I wanted to note? Yeah, that's basically it. So there are a couple of pieces to this. The Rogue tree has most of your utility in the top portion. So your basic spells, as we'd expect, And then any of the PvP adjustments you want to make here, some survival stuff, some CC stuff down the middle, or defensive pieces. And then just other utility like extra stealth duration, disabling enemies, that kind of stuff. On the assassination side, major new ideas. Atrophic poison, which basically is a 3% damage reduction. So it's basically like a devotion aura for your entire party or raid. And that's kind of cool. I don't think this will stack. My guess is that you wouldn't want 5 assassination rogues to stack up this DR, but maybe that's how they want it to work. I think that would be kind of broken. My guess is just you'd want at least 1 assassination rogue. So this idea of having raid flavor, or if they're going to keep all these kinds of things like powered fortitude and arcane intellect, these kinds of cornerstone pieces, if they want that flavor for classes, Rogue now has, in 3 different versions, a kind of raid utility. On the, I think on the outlaw side, you get some CDR reduction in one of the talents, and on the sub side, you get basically a roar. So your cloak of concealment gives a 50% speed boost. So different versions, and if you're doing some raiding, this is a kind of major feature that's being added to the game. Deathmark is your vendetta changed, so you're just doubling up on everything. And they've doubled down on this type of gameplay by introducing more types of poisons, including more single target throughput poison here in amplifying poison, and then obviously an atrophic poison. So what does this mean for the gameplay if we're changing Vendetta to Deathmark? I think very little. This seems to be the same kind of niche, i.e. it's giving Vendetta a burst feeling, but combined with a few other pieces, like specifically the other major feature that's coming into the game, Indiscriminate Carnage, which says your Garrote and Rupture are now AoE abilities. So you can think through how to put together things like Deathmark Burst on a single target, AoE Burst with Garrotes, and Rupture spreading, and everything in between. But those are the main features that are being added into this that we haven't really seen yet. Atrophic Poison, change to Vendetta, AoE distribution of bleeds, everyone getting Shadow Dance, Thistle Tea, Cold Blood, and then and then of the Covenant stuff coming in. So what do I think about these choices? Excellent. I know people want Bone Spike. I don't think it's as necessary. I think what they were trying to do with this idea, which I'll talk about in a bit, with single target, is give you another way of thinking about the relationship between energy regeneration and combo point spending, which seems to be a theme across Assassination, is how do you take what is traditionally a very slow APM spec and modify it for the player's play style. So far more energy regeneration, therefore a higher activity build, or far more burst, so you are pooling resources, and maybe with things like Thistle Tea and Marked for Death in a PvP environment especially, you are converting a bunch of energy quickly into damage and then resetting your energy and doing it all over again. This has a lot of implications for the way Assassination plays, which has, as I said, traditionally been a very slow spec and then had these giant burst windows in PvP, or just been very steady across a raid encounter. So you're keeping your dots up and you only get maybe a vanish here or there. We're gaining access to more vanishes if we want them. I believe that's in this tree, unless I'm mistaken. I'll have to go through it. In any case, some cool options here. So let's, I guess we'll start with what I've thought of as the PvE Mythic Plus AoE focused style of Assassination. And you'll notice that these are very different in their approaches compared to each other. When I looked at the Disc Priest and I was trying to figure out how do you do different styles of Disc Priest, the options didn't seem to me as clearly defined. And yet what I love about Assassination, guys, is despite these choices that I'm making, I still feel like there's 2, 3, 4 more points I would love to have in order to adjust, modify, change, amplify the build. So you can see here the major differences. On the AoE side, on our rogue side, what we're looking to do is get this idea, and I don't actually know if this is a great idea, but get Thistle Tea combined with Marked for Death and really lean into Fan of Knives spamming into Tempest spam. Obviously keeping Ruptures up and Garrotes up whenever we can, Indiscriminate Carnage, so basically every other pull, I'm guessing. But maybe combining some crazy stuff like Cold Blood with Stealth Garrotes to open on packs with Indiscriminate Carnage and just do giant dumpster Garrotes on everything into giant Ruptures. And after that, fill with Fan of Knives into Crimson Tempest. And the idea of Thistle Tea here is something like, hey, if I don't have a lot of energy regeneration in AoE, which often happens, right? You Garrote in an opener, and then you Tempest, and then what do you do next, right? Do you fill with Tempest over and over again? Do we keep Ruptures up on a certain number of targets? What happens when we get energy starved? And then in AoE, maybe we have too much energy. So this is something to track. I don't know how bad the energy regeneration is going to be for Assassination in AoE, but I thought, this is at least one way to think about it. So you come down here, what we're grabbing is just basic crit chance for Fan and poison related stuff. We are avoiding almost all of the utility. You probably need Feint and High Keys is my guess, so maybe this comes off and you get away from Thistle Tea. But you're also trying to stay in stealth more often, right? So Shadow Dance gives us the stealth effect, and Rupture traditionally, Garrote traditionally gives us more damage from stealth, so we almost always in Mythic Plus want to be coming out of stealth to do Garrotes. So this idea doubles down on being able to be in stealth. We have more opportunity to get big damage on our bleeds. And then we can potentially think about Exsanguinate if we have the energy from Thistle Tea. So we can Fan into Crimson Tempest and Exsanguinate into Thistle Tea, Fan, Crimson Tempest, that kind of stuff. Okay, you get some goodies like some reduction here. I don't know if this is as necessary. Really, Alacrity, Deeper Stratagem versus Lethality, Vigor is, I think, a really good design idea because I found it hard to decide which one's better. On the Assassination side for Mythic Plus, I'm thinking like a Fortified week, right? We have Fan interactions, so we're going to grab Poison Catar, we're going to grab Flying Daggers. We still want to get a little bit of poison damage because we're spreading a lot of poisons around in AoE. The shift stuff I don't think matters as much, though obviously we have to take it to get down here. What we're looking to do is make use of Indiscriminate Carnage as much as possible. And I think if you imagine the relationship between Indiscriminate Carnage and your AoE rotation, this is like every other pack, or if you do a big pull, you get it basically every pack, and that's almost guaranteed to be obscene amounts of damage unless they scale things down, because Rupture damage plus ease of access to poison spreading plus Garrote damage from stealth is insane. What are we avoiding? Well, we're kind of avoiding this extra poison. We're avoiding more poison applications because we're probably not going to press in Venom as much in a Fortified week, right? We're going to be doing more Tempest spam. We don't need as much, like we don't need Tiny Toxic Blade. Zoldyke is kind of an annoying one. Like obviously this would be pretty good. But the thing about Mythic Plus is it's not like a raid boss that's going to last for 2 minutes in execute or a minute and a half in execute. Stuff usually gets burst down. So maybe Zoldyke's not actually that good. And I don't think Venom Rush is worth it if you're going to be trying to use Thistle Tea. Also, we don't really need the Blindside Maim stuff. We don't really need to cast Sepsis and Doomblade because Mutilate's only going to be really for boss stuff. We're going to be building with Fan. I like that these options work nicely together, and yet there's still more I could get. Meaning, even if I'm focusing on Fan as a builder, and focusing on Tempest as a spender. And I'm kind of saying, I'll just let my single target dry up a bit. I'm not going to index into Mutilate. I still could grab things that are good for the build. Look at this. Envenom's still going to be decent. Poison Bomb, still going to be decent in AoE, putting it together with Tempest. I could still get Atrophic for big keys. I could still get some more utility on Iron Wire or Internal Bleeding, which are all decent in Mythic Plus, because these mobs are not only going to be stunned, but they're going to take the full damage of the Kidney Shot Bleed, which is pretty strong. Like, these are options that are still interesting to me and are powerful. So from a Mythic Plus perspective, just on the assassination side alone, I want more points, and that's a great feeling to have when you're designing a tree. I mean, would it be bad to have Zoldyck? No, it'd be great. It's these choice between which ones are better. So that's, I think, really cool. And you could probably design these, you could go different routes, but I like this one. Same is true for single target. There's lots of options, and there's things that I would prefer to take, and I can't because there's not enough points. And that's a theme I think is really excellent because there's so many good things. So single target, maybe this is a tyrannical week and you don't care about AoE. I feel like even if you're in Mythic Plus, you have to have Indiscriminate Carnage. Maybe this is a raid one and you don't need to have Atrophic Poison. But let's work through the idea. We're going to have a lot more uptime on Envenom casts and Mutilate casts, so Fan is not going to be much of a builder. So we're probably going to skip Cut to the Chase and just manually cast Slice and Dice just to save points. Again, if I had 2 more points, this would be awesome. If I had another 3 points, this would also be awesome. There's so many cool things, guys. Then come down here and, skip out on Fan and stuff. We're going to go for Blindside here and play with an improved ambush so that our blindsides are giving us 2 from the ambush, 2 points as normal. And obviously, Garrote damage, increasing Mutilate is great. 30% is I think it's a good baseline for a talent. Meaning if it was less than this, if it was only like 10% increased damage, it would feel kind of poor. This is playing with the double poison, and the reason for that is in single target, we're going to get far more Envenom casts, so this is going to stack up. And with the Deathmark, we are applying a double version of this, both the Amplifying Poison and our Deadly Poisons. So we'll have that stack up even more in single target. I think overall, Sepsis is excellent for single target stuff. I mean, they'll have to tune it, but it's also right beside Doomblade, which is a great single target ability. So you can see here clearly Scent of Blood's going to be awesome if you have AoE Ruptures, and this ability guarantees AoE Ruptures. You see how the designer did this? Awesome, but not as relevant in single target. Zoldyck as well. I don't know. Zoldyck's good in certain kinds of execute moments, but you don't have to take it. So what we're doing is we're just doubling down on having 1 extra lethal poison in the form of Amplifying Poison to punch out even more nature damage from Envenom. And Deathmark gives us a burst of that. We could also take more poisons. It'd be nice to have more points for this. So this is the single target portion. On the rogue side for single target, we can maybe get away with no Cold Blood, skipping Leeching Poison, skipping Seal of Fate, even though these are all quite strong. Thistletea I don't think is as relevant, more bursty. We're even going to skip out on Shadow Dance because Assassination, though it loves to have those big garrotes from stealth, doesn't really depend upon stealth as much to do its damage, or its damage profile isn't as dependent on it. So this is more just tons of throughput through and crit on all of these main abilities. So we get, more crit on our Mutilates. We get, again, more crit damage on our Mutilates. We get more bleed damage from the Mutilates that we did. And this is all scaling together. I think actually the versatility bonus is probably pretty decent. 4% more damage. versus energy reduction, and I've kind of thought maybe there's a payoff here where you skip on energy stuff here and you gain the anima charged effect, which is essentially the ability for you to use more 7-point combo spenders from extra anima charge stuff, so you get more spenders in general. And if you're getting more envenoms off, then you're allowing your energy to pool back a little bit. I'm not sure if that's entirely reasonable, but we also have the ability here to have a little more personal DR with Feint. Yeah, anyways, I think, guys, it's exciting. Like, this is, I'm racking my brains because there are other builds that I would think about. Like, what if we, wait a minute, what if we just had, could we do single target and do shadow stuff? Like, maybe there's an encounter, and this is what I'm starting to think about. Maybe there's an encounter where I need a 1-minute burst profile. Maybe there's an encounter where where 3 minutes is important. Maybe it's actually that I need to survive. It's just steady damage, and I really need a trophic, and I need all the tools for survival. If it's that good on the PvE side, guys, think about what the PvP guys are going to do with all of these options. Think about how they're going to think of, wait, what about a cold blood build? Hold on a second. Can I force that much burst? What about echoing reprimand with sepsis? With death mark? Like, there's so many cool ideas. So my point to you is, Blizz, this is good stuff. There could be some minor adjustments, but if you released Assassination Rogue as is, it's already good. Please make the other specs feel this good, where the choices I'm making involve really strong options that I have to choose between, because that just makes me want to play the game over and over and over again and try different things and change the build up and adjust it. See if ambush is worth it in single target. See how I can modify 2-target approaches. Is 3 targets worth indiscriminate carnage? Maybe, but that changes the gameplay profile completely. Really cool stuff. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. I'll hopefully come back with a few more videos about the other Rogue stuff, and I'm looking forward to Blizz releasing more info for the other specs, and I'm really hoping that they, in their first draft, look a lot more like Assassination Rogue, because I'm excited. Okay, thanks. We'll see you guys later.